Now, China, of course, doesn't want to become this. Like, there's a big saying in China that we have to make 8 million pairs of pants to buy one Boeing 737. You can have 1.2 billion people to make 8 million pants, but you can have a few to make these cars. Actually, last night I was listening to the City Club of Portland, and they're talking about what can we do in the economy? Shall we return to manufacture? Do we want to make things or do we want to invent things? That's an interesting question. Economies are different. And also at the same time, when we are so critical of our systems, when we think we should learn from other educational systems, especially the East Asians, are trying to learn to be like more American. In 2002, China forbid, specifically said, we are not going to rank our schools based on test scores. We're not ranking our teachers based on test scores. Well, that's the year when No Child Left Behind became law. That test was elevated to its highest status ever in the US. In 2005, China launched another round of high school reform, which trying to relax the curriculum, while the US, many states are moving toward the core curriculum to a more restrictive curriculum. When you, by the way, make a curriculum, whatever curriculum you're making, you are in essence making a bet on behalf of the future of your children to say that if you study as I have prescribed, that you will have a bright future. I don't think there are many authorities who can do that. Like I said, if you teach today's children use yesterday's methods, you're depriving them of a future, of a tomorrow. That's basically the idea. So what the curriculum reform in China is trying to do, more electives, more local control, more local autonomy. Not only China, Japan. And other countries constantly scored very high. But what they want in their reform, emotional education, well-rounded human beings, children develop individuality, more diverse choices, give schools more autonomy. Singapore, explicit teaching of critical creative thinking skills. They have reduced their math content by 1/3 since 1997. They revised assessment modes, not focus on the outcome, but focus on the process. South Korea, cultivate creative, autonomous, self-driven human beings, self-leading capacity, expanded local autonomy for curriculum decisions. Well, in the US, we're moving towards centralization, standardization, and standardized test. All these countries who have scored very high, they have tried national educational curriculum, national textbooks, national tests. They've tried everything, but they found those will get you good test takers. They will not give you the innovators. That's why they're changing this thing. So now the question for me is to say why? Why all these countries don't do this? Why hasn't the US really kind of tanked, to the bottom yet in terms of, giving all this bad story, 50 years of public education? And those gaps are true. Remember I said that. I think we have different gaps. Some gaps matter, some gaps don't. As human beings, diversity is the nature of all of us. I look at all of you, some people have more hair than others, that's a gap, right? Some people walk faster, some people walk slower, that's a gap. Some gaps matter, some gaps don't. And here's my personal gap, I have to confess. That's a glass of beer if you know about this. Okay. I grew up in China in the village. We did not really drink beer. So using some educational terms, I did not have enough time on task. Did not practice, did not drink in that, right? It's not. And when I came to the US, you go to graduate school, you know what they do, right? So I went to graduate school in the Midwest, in Illinois, people practice this kind of stuff, So by the time I finished one, they get done three, that's right there was my achievement gap. It's, well, due to time on task, right? Don't spend enough time, there's not much about to that. So this gap, fortunately, did not matter. There are a lot of gaps that don't matter, so let's just take one example, see if this gap mattered. 1964, the first international mathematics study was conducted, and as usual, the US did not do very well. If you were 13 in 1964, you put the US to shame because you finished second to last. But when we say we look at a country's success, we should look at other indicators. Would you agree? I don't think any country can proudly say, we just want high test scores, you'll be happy. No, you want something else. Let's take a look at other correlations. 40 years later, the higher a nation test scores 40 years ago, the worse its economic performance on GDP. Just go on with economic factors. The rate of economic growth for nations improved as test scores dropped. I'm not asking you guys to go drop a test scores, okay? I'm just showing you why this gap doesn't matter, okay? There's no relationship between FAME score and hourly output. Quality of life correlated -5.7. Democracy, livability, creativity, all of that. I didn't do the study. Actually, it's the an officer out of the National Center of Educational Statistics in the US did the study. There are many more studies like that to show international test scores do not predict a nation's success. As you know, as educators, in your classroom, your first grade do not predict whether a kid is going to be successful or not. No, that's basically, we have been looking at things that don't matter for a nation's growth. Now, what matters? That's the question today. I'm trying to answer what matters today. So if you go back to history or study today, what matters in terms of a population? So there's two books. One is actually by the recent, the Tiger Mom who wrote this. This is a good book. The new book she wrote, that's why I think she was joking. She's contradicting herself. Amy Chua is a Yale University professor. She wrote this book a few years called Day of Empire. She studied how hyperpowers rise to global dominance. What are hyperpowers? Powers that's like the Roman Empire, the British Empire, Tang Dynasty China, or America today. These are very interesting countries to study. They rose from little things and grow to global dominance. She said, why? What's in common across these hyperpowers? She found one thing. She calls tolerance. So I took it from that idea. I said, what does tolerance mean? It means all these empires became empires because they were able to, they tried very hard to take advantage of all the diverse talents they have conquered, to take advantage of all the different perspectives, different skills, different knowledge, so they can build an empire. Building an empire is hard. You need a lot of different kind of people. Well, other empires collapsed quickly. Well, the Third Reich, German Empire, remember that? It grew up quickly because it's trying to exclude other people, not trying to include other people. Diversity of talents. It makes sense. Economically makes sense. Because at any given time, any country can gain advantage because of technology, because of invention, discovery of new resources that can change fast. Industries change all the time. What do you need? You need new industries coming along. The industry needs to be more resilient. You have more diverse people. New industries are invented by people who are always on the margins, not in the mainstream. They kept going with this. And that's why, Michigan is in big trouble because they have tried to hold on to an industry that doesn't exist anymore. I mean, it exists in some other places. Michigan is trying to diversify its economy. The Middle East. I was in Abu Dhabi, actually, talking to their educators and their authorities about this. They realize, the Stone Age ended not because they ran out of stones. They know the oil age will end without running out of oil. Some other technology coming. So they want to diversify what they do. So diversity of talents. And number two, The Rise of the Creative Class by Richard Florida, who has moved, by the way, to Canada. And serious, I'm sorry about that. He was American, but he left. And he studies modern contemporary communities. He's an economist. Ask question, why did certain communities become more prosperous than others? You look at the San Francisco Bay Area, the Boston area, even Idaho, actually, the certain Boise area. Why did they grow? San Antonio area? His answer is very similar. He added two more things. He said 3 T's: technology, talents, and tolerance. Again, tolerance. And now, with that, by the way, Richard Florida had this term called the gay index. Got a lot of conservatives angry at him. And he says, I'm not saying gays make them, but he said just because we have more gays, meaning in the population we are more tolerant. That's why it's vibrant, By the way, Portland and Eugene have become very vibrant in this whole areas now. Diversity of talents matters. Creativity matters. People come up with new ideas. Entrepreneurship matters. That, you know, right now, the last decade in the US economy is driven by individual entrepreneurs, by small to medium-sized businesses, not the big employees. Big employees have sent their jobs away somewhere else, big employers, I'm sorry, to other places now. It's also a sense of passion. When you study the difference of talents between American workers and other workers, we find a big difference in terms of passion. Don't have time to explain all of this, you know, because I have 35 minutes, 75 slides. I got to do every 30 seconds, run through one. Okay. Now, how did American schools by accident do this? I have a lot of East Asian friends, educators, come to study in the US. How did Americans become so creative, innovative, diverse? And where do they teach that? That's what they always look for. I said, I can't find a unit. They've never taught it. You know, I don't know how to do it. But then I said, okay, here's something I can share with you. I think the best kept secrets of American education, all of you as educators know this. As parents, you know this. Are really two things. Number one, multiple criteria to judge the value of a person. Look at our schools. In our schools, we have cheerleaders, we have, you know, kind of sports people, we have academic geeks, we have all kinds of people over there. But the best example I tell them, you want to see how that happens? Go to a school talent show. A school talent show represents the best idea of American education. Not American teaching, but best American education. You go there, you go to school. I go to my daughters all the time. It's very crazy stuff, right? You go there. I mean, a lot of times you wonder why they even call it a talent show. It's not a talent show. It's all kinds of stuff going on there. But it teaches us to value individual talents. You're a violin player, the piano player, karate or whatever. Some people do this. You do all kinds of crazy stuff. It's good because we think any one of those could be potentially valuable. And this I cannot denounce you, say that's not talent, right? And teaches about, inspires passion, responsibility, because if children choose what they do, they're much more likely to accept the responsibility. A recent book by Daniel Pink called Drive talks a lot about motivation comes from autonomy. We need to respect teachers' autonomy, students' autonomy. Autonomy is what motivates people. It's not money or public shaming of students or any teachers, anything like that. It's autonomy. For students, same thing. If they choose, they accept the responsibility. And by the way, I think many students, they go to school because they just simply feel sorry for their parents. They got to go, you know. They choose to go. They tolerate deviation and cultivate entrepreneurship. We need the talent shows. You have a lot of kids do all kinds of crazy stuff, but invite their siblings, having the neighbors do it for them. Second best kept secret of American education, I learned from my son's first grade teacher, Mrs. Margie Lippi. When I went to, this is many years, my son is in college now, second year. She said, I believe children like popcorn. I don't know if you have this Oregon idea, you know, you don't have the popcorn. Michigan, you have corn. And she said, some pop early, some pop late. And I said, wow. That's very powerful. It's a great philosophy, except for the few that gets burned. But that's, other than that, it's a great idea. It's a very commonsensical idea that's generally held and believed by many educators, parents. We are different. We develop, look at that, you know, we are very different. I know, you agree with me. You know, we develop at different rates. We come from different backgrounds, different cultures, we have different strengths, different weaknesses. Therefore, our school system in the US, we carry the whole population. Everybody gets 12 years. Everybody gets second chances, third chances. We do not sort students when they're 3 or 4 or 5. We do not get rid of them when they are 9, you know. We carry them. A lot of chances. Those two are very surprising findings for many people because this about education is not about teaching. Too often our focus is on teaching, on instruction of specific knowledge or skills. We forget education is much more than schooling, much more than acquisition of knowledge or skills. I can say this. Other countries, Finland, Singapore, China, they all agreed at instruction. There's a lot we can learn. In a classroom teaching, classroom learn, we can learn a lot. But in terms of education, they fail. That's why they're changing. That's why there's gap. That's what matters. So here I took a quote from, some people say it's Einstein. I couldn't find when Einstein said this. Actually, I'm reading the whole biography of Einstein. But then I was told as well that if you attribute things smart like this to Einstein, you can't be wrong. So just believe me. Must be correct. Okay. Einstein, if he didn't say it, should have said this. Okay. Not everything that can be counted, not everything can be counted. Now let's move on to some final comments about. So now, every once in a while in human history, we have to redefine what knowledge is of most worth. Schools cannot teach everything. We have to make a choice. I think today in our debate, we spend too much time debating about how do we make something effective? How do we improve the teaching and learning? But we stop too early without asking, improve the teaching and learning of what?